We've been having a lot of discussions about medical care in between the fact of Kevin having the major leg and foot surgery and then Carla having to have her stuff pulled out. And we've talked about how it's beginning to get sort of bare bones or whatever. Well,
Pulled out on her leg, the screws and everything else. You have to be very clear about what you were saying.
Women's bodies are very complex.
Yes. So a few weeks ago, I jammed my finger and it hadn't got any better. So I told Carla, I said, I'm going to go to the doctor and let them do an x-ray because maybe I've cracked it or something like that. So I go to my doctor and they call me back and I get the girl comes in and takes your blood pressure and all that stuff. And she's saying, so what's your problem? And I tell her. And so the nurse says, did you do it in like a bar fight or something cool like that? And I said, God, I wish I had a great story. She said, what did you do? I said, I was reaching for the grocery cart and I hit the handle of the grocery cart with my middle finger and just jammed the crap out of it. And she goes, yes, that's not a great story. I said, yeah, I understand. So they give me the x-rays. And so I take all kinds of different, x-rays of it. So I come back and my doctor comes in and he's looking at the x-rays and he says, nothing's really cracked. He said, but he said, on one of the x-rays, I get an angle and I can see, I think you've chipped a piece of the bone. And when you're moving your finger, the bone is irritating you. He said, so what we need to do is we need to get that finger immobile so that you can't bend it, for a couple of weeks. And then let's see how it does. And I said, okay, all right, that sounds good. And so he starts wrapping up his stuff and he says, when you get home, get you a couple of popsicle sticks or anything that's that you can put on either side of your finger to immobilize it and then just wrap tape around it. And, and I'm like, what? And he walks out the door.
Lamar, isn't that what you went to the doctor for?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like at the very minimum that he would immobilize it. So I'm visualizing the little splint and everything. And he goes, once you get it immobilized, if it still hurts in 2 weeks, come back and I'll send you to a hand guy. And I'm like,
is this the Beavis and Butthead urgent care? I mean,
no.
They don't have splints? They didn't have splints?
I think what doctors and hospitals are doing now, they're training us to be self-sufficient if the apocalypse comes so that we don't rely on them so much, that we're whatever. So anyway, so he walks out and I'm just standing there. And so I look at the nurse and so she looks at me and she sort of has this look on her face. She goes, do you want me to go see if I can find an actual splint? I said, that would be great. If you think you have one. She goes, I'm not sure. So she's gone for about 5 minutes. She comes back and she says, I found this one. And so she puts it on there and she wraps it up with she goes, well, this pink bandage, is that a problem? I said, no. She said, well, it's on your middle finger. I said, well, that'll make it easy to see in case, I said, my communication. Yeah, my communication skill, I said, trust me, I will use this more than the thumbs up, okay? I said, I have more communication with that or whatever. And so now I went ahead last night and took it upon myself to order me a set of finger splints just in case something else ever happens because evidently going to the doctor is not where you get this. Go home and get two popsicle sticks.
Two popsicle sticks.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, you could have Googled that and saved yourself the copay and the drive.
Yes.
Like, I'm sorry, but what is, if I'm at home making my own splint out of popsicle sticks, I need to ask, what's your job? Like, what are you in this for?
Although you're lucky you weren't in a hospital asking for those splints because those two popsicle sticks would have cost $75 if they were in if you were in a hospital.
Exactly.
Well, the next time I'm at the doctor or the urgent care, they have those glass jars filled with tongue depressors. I'm going to go ahead and help myself to a few because you just never know when you might have to splint an injury.
It's the stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't do on the regular show. The Oddcast on the free Bob and Sheri app.
The whole thing with Facebook and Instagram where, you're communicating with people that you know, some people you don't know, is wonderful. I was in contact with an old friend of mine, Paul Miserandino, who I've known since we were in high school, and his wife, Georgina. And, he messaged me listening to the show, and he said, I'm going to give you a call. And we got together, and that's really, really nice to connect with people you haven't heard of in a long time. And sometimes you learn something different about them. Like we had a mutual friend named Peter who lives in Maine, and his son, out of the blue, is a listener of the Bob and Sheri show. All right. The kid is probably around 20, 21 years old right now. And, he just found us, and he didn't realize the connection was through his father, me. So those
cool.
things, yeah, very cool. Those things are wonderful. But every once in a while, somebody will pop up and you just go, ooh, I remember the last time I had contact. There was this guy, and you know how people come and go in your life? Like you see them a lot for a few years, and then, I don't know, something changes. Sometimes they move, sometimes you move, sometimes just you get married, your life changes, and they kind of drift away. People like that. This guy was one of those guys, and he was married at the time to a friend of mine. And my ex and I had a Siberian Husky named Stoli. And Stoli was kind of crazy. I just love Stoli, but Stoli was kind of crazy. And she and I were going away for a weekend. And I shouldn't have done this. I said, Claire, could you take this dog? And she said yes. And they had a backyard and all of that. And so I'm getting the feeling that he did not want to have the dog for the weekend. He was a very particular guy. We got along great. We played golf together. I mean, everything was really great. But then I heard when we picked up the dog that they were sleeping, and my dog, Stoli, came in to their bedroom, and on his side of the bed, he went. He went big time.
Number 2 boom booms? Was
Yeah.
it boom booms? Okay, just checking.
And Stoli's very quiet, and he sleeps well, to get my friend. He got out of bed at 6:00 in the morning to get ready. He worked for a bank, to get ready to go to a bank job, and stepped right in it first thing and went out of his mind. And she said,
Well, I
I
mean,
was going to call you, but I decided I didn't want to ruin your weekend. But just a heads up to you, that happened. So we stayed, friends. He didn't bring it up the next time we played golf, but I knew, and I knew how ticked off he was. And he just popped up and, how you doing, Bob? Everything okay? Yeah, it's me. And all I can think about is that one instance. And if I were to, see him again, we don't live near each other anymore, but if I were to see him again, that's the only thing I could think of. And I just don't have it in me to say, I know it's been years. I'm really sorry that you stepped in it. I felt terrible about that. But that's all I would be able to think of.
If you agree to take care of somebody else's kids or pets and something like that happens, you don't get to be salty and have a grudge
But
about
he
it.
didn't
I don't
agree.
think.
He half-heartedly agreed. She pressured him.
Still, and it's not like you told Stoli, hey, Stoli, take a crap on his side of the bed. There's $20 in it for you. I mean, the dog, you had no control
If Stoli could
over
do that, I would have taken Stoli to work, and I'd point to an office or two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do about it, because he's a nice guy, I mean, he's not a tight friend of mine, but you like to communicate with people.
So you're afraid to even have a parasocial relationship with this man on the ground that he once upon a time stepped in a pile of your dog's boom booms? I just want to make sure I
exactly.
understand.
No, that's
Okay.
exactly how I feel. Yeah. It's the only thing I can think of.